$1 million shoe collection, $3 million custom car, lavish mansions, and even a video game company? Here are quite literally the stupidest things MLB players own. And Clint Frazier, well, he bought a really dumb thing in the form of $1 million shoe collection made out of mostly cleats. Well, technically shoes turned into cleats, but Clint didn't always have it this easy. See, Clint was born in the middle of nowhere in a small town in Georgia, and to an outsider, he never seemed like anything other than an ordinary kid. Until, of course, he joined his local baseball team, and that's where he really started to shine, scoring 27 home runs in his junior year and winning the Jackie Robinson Award. Clint was then drafted 5th in the first round after spending a year at college. Having spent some time in the minor leagues while also being signed to the Yankees roster, Clint had some cash to throw around. But he had one big problem standing in his way: his exclusive $1 million contract with Adidas. Which all started in 2018 when Adidas signed an exclusive deal with Clint, forcing him to only wear Adidas cleats when playing baseball. And Clint, well, he didn't like that. Sure, it put a ton of money in his pocket, but he saw shoes as a way of expressing himself on the field, and Adidas' contract was stopping that. Which is why he decided to chuck a multi-million-dollar deal out the window so he could rock any cleats he wanted to. Because when it comes to baseball, most players aren't necessarily known for having the greatest shoe game on the field. I mean, Bryce Harper literally wore these shoes in a game. But after all, cleats are cleats, and people are checking out how you're pitching or hitting the ball, not the pair of shoes you're wearing. And Clint, he was wearing the finest shoes he could afford, which were surprisingly expensive shoes, rocking a custom cleat version of Travis Scott's Air Jordan 1s, which got him a shout out from Cactus Jack himself. Clint also had the Space Jam Jordan 11s, and most impressively, a $2,000 custom pair of Nike Air Force 1 cleats. Check these bad boys out. Clint loved shoes, especially customized shoes he could wear on the field, which is why he quite literally bought hundreds of shoes, some which he never even wore. Sure, it did rack up, but in the man's own words, it almost felt like whenever I wore a new pair of cleats, I'd hit a home run. And it's apparent as Clint hit over 12 homers in 2019 alone. Hey, if he keeps hitting home runs, then he can just keep buying more shoes, so it's a win-win. And at least he didn't drop thousands of dollars on some crazy stupid purchases, because that's exactly what Yoenis Cespedes did. This man bought something so stupid, it still haunts him in his sleep. Yoenis thought it would be a good idea to buy a literal pig for $7,000. It's safe to say that Yoenis Cespedes is known for his stupid purchases. I mean, the guy basically uses money as toilet paper, signing a massive 4-year, $110 million contract with the Mets back in 2016. And he kinda went wild like a kid in a candy store. He thought it would be a good idea to buy a 270-pound championship pig at a county fair. And in 2016, he actually did it, buying the pig at the St. Lucie County Fair. Now, Yoenis Cespedes does actually prefer the farm life. Born in Cuba to parents who were both heavily involved in baseball, Yoenis practically grew up with the sport, joining a special baseball-focused school at the age of 12. But his passion for the farm life was always there, owning an 88-acre piece of land smack dab in the middle of Florida, and he even had an unfortunate incident with a wild boar, which, just to clarify, is not a pig, on his ranch back in 2019. However, the stupid part of Yoenis' $7,000 purchase wasn't just that it was a 270-pound pig, it was that he wasn't even allowed to keep the pig, as Florida state law states that pigs can't be taken home as pets. So sadly, Yoenis wasn't bringing home the bacon. Or, well, maybe he did, but that probably would have been really traumatic. Kinda like the time Homer ate his pet lobster. Yikes. But at least he didn't waste his money on a custom car. You remember back in the day with all the hype surrounding Hummers, like if you had a Hummer, you were the cool kid? Well, my man Alfonso Soriano did exactly that. He thought it would be a good idea to buy some stupidly expensive car and then drop $100,000 customizing it. Like, what do you customize that costs twice the price of the car? Well, it's obvious that Alfonso had that kind of money because of the $136 million contract he signed with the Cubs. So he bought the 2005 H2 Hummer. This bad boy had 375 horsepower and came with a CD player and a DVD player. And for all y'all virgins with Bluetooth, try to remember this was back in the day, man. CDs were cool once. Anyways, this Hummer cost Alfonso about $50,000, and Alfonso was probably feeling the 2005 vibes because he went out and painted his Hummer Cubs blue while also spending about $100,000 in various upgrades, including a massive sound system that pretty much took over everything but the driver's seat. And by 2012, Alfonso wasn't feeling it, so he listed the car on eBay for only 36 grand, $114,000 less than he had bought it for. Definitely not a smart move. But I mean, losing 2/3 of your wealth before the age of 40 isn't really a smart move either. If you thought this purchase was stupid, Yoenis Cespedes bought something so stupid, he was basically giving people free money to buy it from him. So after Yoenis bought a $7,000 pig and maybe turned it into the most expensive charcuterie board I've ever heard of, you'd think he'd learn his lesson, right? Well, it turns out you'd be wrong, and he's also a car guy, which gives him yet another way to stupidly lose money, buying stupid things. I mean, I'm starting to think the Mets gave this guy way too much money. Anyway, Yoenis currently owns 2 Ford F-150s, Alfa Romeo 8Cs, and of course a Lambo. But the craziest car he decided to buy was his hideous red and silver Polaris Slingshot. Man, this car was so ugly, I don't even want to know what was going through his head when he purchased it. With its 12-speaker sound system, LED lights, and forged wheels, this thing looks like it was ripped straight out of a Fast and Furious movie. I'm even wondering if there's an ejector seat. All in all, it cost 70 grand, and while it may be specific to his taste, he's definitely going to have a harder time selling it than Alfonso's Hummer. I mean, just look at the thing. And this isn't even the most expensive car he owned. Yoenis had a custom Lambo that was worth over 300 grand. This guy definitely deserves his own TV show. I mean, the shenanigans with animals alone would be like one season, like Dwight and his beet farm in The Office. And I can totally see him racing Migos in a 4-way Lambo race. Now that would be totally sick as hell, but let's take the spotlight off Yoenis for just 1 second. To the man who bought something so expensive, it's almost a waste of money. And David Big Papi Ortiz, well, he bought his super expensive item for a wedding. See, Big Papi Ortiz is well known for being a generous guy. He gives to charity, he gives to teammates, and he's even super great to fans. But being Big Papi seems to be a lot like being Pitbull. He's all about generosity. See what I did there? Anyways, when his longtime friend basketball player Al Hartford pulled up needing help with his wedding, Big Papi was all hands on deck. Though I'll admit, needing a car for your wedding when you've made over $200 million in your career is a little bit silly. But hey, I ain't judging the man. Big Papi made true his nickname and came through with a $420,000 Rolls Royce Phantom. And keep in mind, this wasn't a wedding gift. Big Papi bought the car because his friend needed it for 1 day. 1 day! And the real reason why Big Papi bought the Rolls Royce was because his friend was subscribed to our YouTube channel, Shortstop. That's the only reason. And if you don't subscribe right now, you're never gonna get a Rolls Royce, so subscribe. Anyways, one thing I'll never understand is why all these MLB players wear stupidly expensive necklaces while they're playing. If that thing breaks or you lose it, that's $500,000 down the drain. Well, that happened to Yoenis Cespedes. Yet again, this man steps up with another stupidly expensive purchase. But by now, we can't really be surprised, now can we? Back in 2018, while the Mets were playing against the Braves, Yoenis decided it would be the perfect time to showcase his brand new $500,000 necklace to the world. See, that's a big no-no. It's like wearing your tuxedo to a food fight, or a family reunion when everyone just had babies. I guarantee you the results are the same. Just ask my aunts and uncles, they end up not being able to tell vomit from creamed spinach. Anyway, while sliding into second base, Yoenis went a little too hard and the necklace literally exploded, showering diamonds all over the diamond. I guess he took dressing to the nines a little too seriously. After all, the game has 9 innings, doesn't mean you need to dress like you're at a fancy gala with tiny appetizers. However, sometimes it's not even your own fault when something like that happens. Sometimes it's just like leaving your stove on, which can cost you everything you own. Just ask Reggie Jackson. After finally retiring following an amazing run with the New York Yankees, Reggie decided it was time to put his well-earned money to good use. And as an avid lover of cars, Reggie spent years buying and collecting the most iconic and valuable cars he could find. And being a responsible guy, Reggie put his entire collection in a warehouse in Berkeley, California. Which turned out to be a bad idea, because his warehouse caught fire and 35 cars worth over $3 million were destroyed. In Jackson's collection was a 1932 Ford 5-window coupe worth $70,000, a Buick Grand National, one of 600 in the world with only 180 miles on it, a Porsche he got for winning the American League home run title with the Angels, 5 motorcycles, Corvettes, and various other expensive cars. However, the one that hurt Reggie the most wasn't even any of those cars. It was the first car that he had bought back in 1971 for $300 and a color TV, his 1940 Chevy. I mean, everyone remembers their first car, even if it's the broken down minivan your mom used to drive, with its stupid seat that wouldn't go all the way back. Even I would have felt bad if I lost that. But at least Reggie didn't lose over $50 million. We'll just have to give that award to Curt Schilling. This man thought it was a good idea to drop over $50 million on a video game company. After retiring from baseball with 3 World Series and 3,000 strikeouts, while earning over $115 million throughout his career, Curt must have really thought it through when he decided to spend half of his life earnings on a video game company. Sadly, he didn't, as the company only ever released one video game, which never really took off. 6 years after buying it, Curt shut down the company in 2012. And if you thought that was the dumbest purchase an MLB player's ever made, well, somebody literally bought a $25 million mega mansion and then sold it to the Tom Brady. And another person bought an NBA team for over $1.5 billion. If that sounds interesting, go check out this video right here. 8 stupidly expensive things MLB players own. What are you doing? Go watch the video.